Hello! Humans are capable of going to great lengths to regain control of their lives. Freedom is power, but without knowing its price, it is easy to become a pawn in someone else's game. So how can a lone person stay afloat in this ocean of possibilities? The timeline of cat presence in people's lives is full of civilization's most important moments. Chapters of history from all over the world flow one into another. Cults, persecutions, new lands, mysterious powers of animals, and those of humans who imitate them. A long road led the breed of Egyptian Mao through Russia and up to New York.
You be a nice kitty now.
A new story begins underwater, along with the new life of a young woman whose body floats here under the dim glare of the sun. In her old gray life, there was only work. The passion for art has converted into designing trivial commercials for a cosmetic cream. The only thing she has time for nowadays is a quick conversation with her colleague, Sally, who's trying the not yet released product called Butylene and complains about her headache. At the same time, a private presentation is taking place, demonstrating the ambitions of this product. It's designed not only to stop the withering of beauty, but even to reverse it, to revolutionize the world of cosmetics. The director's speech ends with the first victory over aging. A new model replaces Laurel, the boss's wife. After 15 years as the face of the brand, this transition is not easy for her. In addition, in his office, George reprimands her for making a joke about her successor in public. The couple is interrupted by a visit from the timid designer, Patience Phillips, whom the man has summoned earlier. He then proceeds to arrogantly and unfairly scold the employee instead. But thanks to Laurel, the matter simply results in a new deadline.
By tomorrow night. Midnight.
Right, thank you.
As if that weren't enough, the party next door keeps the hard worker awake before the big day. Her attempt to make a name for herself fails miserably. Before going to bed, she spots a cat on the street. It comes to her again in the morning, while Patience is absorbed in creating a new painting. But this time though, the cat appears outside the woman's window on the 3rd floor, and then proceeds to get even higher. Patience's attempt to retrieve the animal from the dangerous height is mistaken for an emergency by a passing police officer, Tom Lone, and it quickly becomes one when an old AC unit turns out to be not the most reliable foothold. Fortunately, the officer manages to save Patience, for whom he has a lot of questions. In the apartment, she explains to him what has happened, but suddenly she notices she is already late for work. Hurrying to run downstairs, the girl drops her wallet. As expected, it immediately becomes a souvenir for the new acquaintance who comes out after her. In the company building, Laurel mournfully observes the rearrangements. Her best years are gone, along with the posters being carried away by workers. George easily recognizes her thoughts and eagerly confirms them out loud. But at the same time, he notes the actual effect that Butylene has had on his wife's face. However, he then postpones its presentation because of the concerns of a scientist who worked on the product, and leaves the disoriented ex-model. Meanwhile, Patience is already in the familiar surroundings of her computer, co-workers, and papers. Suddenly, the officer from the morning shows up, charming the whole office. He returns her possessions to the owner and expertly praises her work. As it turns out, he got interested in it when he first met her and had time to look it up. In between, Tom apologizes for the mix-up and arranges a date with the rescued woman. Even though it's just coffee, the friends immediately start discussing potential outfits, but the girl flatly refuses to wear the leather suit she got for her birthday.
I will never, ever, ever wear that leather outfit.
After working on the project until late at night, she barely meets the deadline. In addition, she must deliver the revised version herself. Meanwhile, the management listens indifferently to the arguments of the cream's creator at the company's research center. The side effects of the drug are scary, but the consequences of ceasing its use are terrifying. The cynical couple does not care, of course. This scene is witnessed by Patience, who has quietly entered the room. Realizing that she has accidentally overheard too much, she rushes away. 2 security agents are sent after her. They do not hesitate and open fire at the girl. Laurel herself has given the order to eliminate her. Patience hides in a pipe, but not for long. A powerful stream of water knocks the girl out, rendering her unconscious, breathless, and dead. The girl's body is found on a muddy beach by the same cat from earlier, surrounded by its fellow felines. The mysterious creature resurrects Patience, giving her a second chance and an animal essence. Upon waking up, the girl finds herself in a healthy body and with heightened perception, feline habits, and physical superpowers that bring her home. Coming to her senses from the ringing of the phone, she finds herself looking clean, but on a shelf under the ceiling. She also notices shards on the floor and blowing wind instead of glass. Yes, she has some memory problems, but at least that part of the night was real. The next call informs her that she overslept her meeting with the handsome officer. In the meantime, the cat reappears at the girl's home, with her owner Ophelia Powers' contacts around its neck. At her house, Patience meets more furry creatures and finally learns some things about the cat. Its nickname is Midnight, and its ancestors are the very Egyptian Mao, the holy inhabitants of ancient temples. Ophelia, a recognized professional in the field, clearly knows something about her pet's mystical talents and guesses how they have affected her guest. Her suspicions are confirmed by a sharp throw of a ball. After deftly catching it, the designer immediately loses control of her new nature.
Catnip.
Refusing to investigate her predicament further, Patience rushes to the office, where she inevitably faces a scolding from her boss. But now everything develops according to a new scenario. At first indifferent, Patience unexpectedly tells George everything that has been building up inside her during her time of work and humiliation. She loses her job because of this, but receives a lot of respect from her colleagues. The walk home with her belongings in a box is illuminated by the gleam of an expensive pendant in the shop window, and then immediately darkened by Sally's collapse. But the girl stays positive even in the hospital, and is only concerned about arranging her friend's love life. And she succeeds. Patience arrives at the school, where Tom is speaking in front of the students. After she gives him an apology coffee, they go to the basketball court with the kids. A brief conversation about taking one's job too seriously turns into a playful challenge to a one-on-one match. And the revitalized quiet girl accepts it. Inexperience no longer embarrasses her. The gift of inhuman acrobatics does its job, and the girl's enthusiasm literally sweeps Tom off his feet.
Can we have our ball back?
Not everyone can boast of the same success in their love lives. Laurel plunges into anger, jealousy, and envy. The calculating woman senses that the newcomer is replacing her, and not just on the runways, covers, and banners, but even in her own marriage. The miracle product is unable to bring back the past, but it can freeze beauty and help you shatter glasses with the squeeze of a hand. Meanwhile, Patience is at home enjoying some tinned fish. She is distracted by Sally. Her friend is waiting for the details of her rendezvous with the crime fighter. Upon receiving them, she criticizes her friend's tactics. The infatuated woman herself also begins to worry about her unusual behavior, walking on the back of the couch. Before ending the call, Sally baffles her with an instruction to just be herself. The only thing that might help Patience calm down is a good night's sleep, but alas, the obnoxious rockers next door haven't moved out. The head biker is being rude, and the cat is teasing her too. It seems she'll have to deal with the situation after all. With that thought in mind, the girl knocks resolutely on the door. She rejects the invitation to the party, and the brutal bearded man refuses her request to turn the music down. The slam of the door in her face is too much for Patience to bear, so she knocks the door down instead. After such a start, it's hard to stop jumping onto the bar stool. Patience pours beer over the speakers and the tough-looking man too. A scathing motion with the hose and a convincing speech silences the loud company for good. The evening has left the girl feeling thrilled. It's time for a makeover. Patience pulls a box with the leather outfit from her closet, chops off her curls, and applies bold makeup. She then completes the stylish look with the perfect accessory.
Time to accessorize.
A freshly stolen bike. Pushing the gas pedal, she races through the city, changing lanes at breakneck speed. The first stop on her way is the very store with the luxurious jewelry. While admiring it, the huntress notices intruders with guns in the building and follows them with excitement, grabbing a mask from the counter the robbers broke. In this attire, she meets the perpetrators of the robbery, deliberately attracting their attention. They are not in the mood for a discussion and start shooting at once. To no avail. The girl dodges all the attacks, gracefully disarms the rivals, and escapes, grabbing some of the jewelry. The next day, the thief wakes up surrounded by jewels scattered all over her bed and quickly collects them, casting one last glance at the obtained Egyptian pendant. At this very moment, its disappearance is investigated by Tom, who has just become acquainted with the rumors about the Catwoman. The search for evidence is not successful. The consolation is a box of cupcakes in a paper bag with some of the missing jewelry and a note saying, "Sorry," from the perpetrator. Where else would the unemployed spend their days if not on the internet? Though instead of looking at job openings, Patience is busy studying the cult of cats. The trail predictably leads her to Ophelia's house. The intelligent lady initiates the girl into the history of the totem religion and pulls the veil of mystery off what happened that night at the research center. The Egyptian goddess Bast chose her, brought her back to life, and bestowed great power upon her. Patience must only accept her patron and herself. Along with the terrible memories, the heroine is given a purpose: to find the culprit behind her own death. She tracks down the executive's assistant as he oversees the scientist's rebellion and sneaks after him. The crooked path leads to a club where the vigilante remembers to order a glass of cream. The drink hits her head, so much so that Patience pulls out her whip and completely dominates the dance floor. Securing the interest of her prey, she makes her way to the guy. The next moment, he's flying out of the establishment. The huntress smoothly goes after him. Their fight quickly turns into a heated interrogation. Sprawled out on the damp asphalt, the rascal gives the reason why she was taken out. The artist knew a lot about the cream. He was only following orders, pulling the lever to release the water. The girl concludes that her boss also knows about the side effects and is hiding everything at the lab. The hypothesis is confirmed by new memories of her previous visit here and the scientist's lifeless body. Just as Patience is hovering over the researcher's body, a random witness and the ensuing alarm scare her away. In the afternoon, the girl visits Sally in the hospital. She is distracted from caring for her by the TV in the room. On the news, the dead scientist is announced as the Catwoman's victim, and George declares that his product must be released on schedule. Patience is beside herself with anger. She sets out on a quest for justice and forbids the ailing woman from using Butylene if she wants to get better. The police investigation doesn't stand still either. Tom suddenly gets a flash of realization. He notices a similarity between the apology on the paper bag from the jewelry store and the coffee cup. Forensics partly agrees with him, but the verdict of the scientist is unequivocal. The personalities of the people who wrote these words are radically different. With thoughts of another date, the officer heads off for a well-deserved weekend.
You got a big weekend plan, Tom?
I do now.
The next date takes place soon. While the girl humiliates the detective at amusement park games, the guy wields his professional weapon: questions. Once the conversation touches upon the murder at the factory, the girl flinches, making a mistake. She speaks unflatteringly of the boss from her unfortunate past and tells Tom about her dismissal. Despite this, the policeman denies that he suspects something, and they continue their walk. But trouble finds the couple again. The Ferris wheel freezes with them at the very peak. Given the circumstances, it is as if fate itself is telling them to kiss. Well, not so fast. A sharp jolt makes even the fearless feline hold onto the swaying booth's handrail. An accident has caused the mechanism to malfunction, and aside from the rest of the passengers, a small child is endangered. Tom can't stand by, and soon starts climbing down to stop the attraction. Patience, with her fantastic reflexes, isn't far behind. In an instant, she gets to the frightened child and holds him close. Together, the couple manages to bring him back to his mother. The man suggests they get dinner, and though she would love to go, Patience already has plans for the evening. In full gear, she easily makes her way into the boss's estate, and from there into the house, cutting through the glass with her diamond claws. But there, she's met with a club to the face. Laurel is always ready to protect what's hers. Barely started, the fight escalates into a reserved altercation in which Patience clarifies her goals of finding George, uncovering the murders, and stopping the dangerous Butylene. The authoritative lady skillfully deflects suspicions away from herself and towards her spouse. She gives away his location and offers to help. Catwoman takes the offered cell phone and heads off to interrogate the man. Unaware of the approaching threat, George sits in the theater box with his new mistress. However, his rudeness quickly separates them, though the chair doesn't remain vacant for long. Catwoman sits in it, ready to execute vengeance on the boss for his crimes. But she does not have time to become completely convinced of the ex-boss's guilt. The attentive security guard calls the police, and the businessman gets abandoned by a second lady this evening. The feline glides gracefully across the stage and the passing performers, drawing applause. From there, she's off to the backstage area, where Tom catches up with her on the narrow overhead platform with his gun raised. The weapon doesn't stop the acrobat. The playful heroine moves behind the detective's back and nearly pushes him down. Using her flexibility, she slips out of the man's grasp time after time, engaging in ambiguous dialogue. Once she is surrounded by her suitor's buddies, she simply disables the power in the room and dissolves into darkness.
Who can see in the dark? I can.
George's day is full of panic after these events. A confrontation with Laurel, who has given up on their marriage, finally makes him lose control. He raises his hand to the unperturbed woman, but the blow only bounces hopelessly off her Butylene-soaked skin. It's as if the skin is now invulnerable, and this change terrifies the man. At this time, Patience has much simpler worries, preparations for an intriguing evening. She's not exactly carefree though. The life-shattering internal contradictions make it impossible to do such a simple task as pick a dress. It's not so easy when you can't even decide who to be and how to live when there are so many things mixed up inside you. In response to all these anxieties, Sally wisely notes that a partner must accept all of you. Laurel, meanwhile, is using up all her supply of the cream. Rubbing it in layer after layer, she obsessively prepares for an event of an entirely different nature. At the restaurant, Tom finds his girlfriend by the aquarium. Her attention is captured by the fish. Together they move to the table. The gifts of the sea appear on it as well. A full plate of sushi is hard to resist, especially if you're a cat. Tom marvels at his friend's unbridled appetite for Japanese cuisine, forcing the girl to change the subject. The dialogue returns to chasing the rogue with the whip, gets sprinkled with flirting, and drifts towards the anxiety of self-determination. But the sensitive man comes to the rescue in time, supporting Patience and confessing his interest in her.
You're different.
On a romantic walk, Patience prepares to explain herself to the guy, but becomes speechless, gazing into his eyes. The interruption is resolved by an unexpected storm. The couple looks for shelter under the canopy of a flower store. The lovebirds finally kiss. Once the passion cools down, the charming feline falls asleep, giving Tom a chance to look through the fridge. That's when he notices a diamond fingernail on the floor, a clue that leads to his goal. In his contemplation, he focuses on another detail, the imprint of his lady's lips on the glass. He is no longer around when Patience is awakened by the phone call in the dark again. Laurel delivers a new batch of deceptions. She claims to have proof of George's guilt, but they must hurry, because after the big conference the next day, it will be impossible to stop the release of the killer cream. The trickster invites the naive superheroine to put an end to her spouse's shady dealings together. Patience, on the other hand, discovers an extra piece of news during their conversation, a short note from Tom with no explanations. At the precinct, the lab technicians are analyzing a new piece of evidence at his request, that very glass. Comparison of the print with the one Catwoman left on the detective's cheek in the theater puts a decisive end to his investigation. The criminal is found, but you can see from his face that the man who uncovered the culprit's name is not happy about his success at all. The prime suspect, meanwhile, puts on her mask again to infiltrate the mansion and meet with Laurel. The latter directs the girl to another room for evidence. Her promise that it will be enough for a long sentence is completely true. On the floor lies the dead George with marks from bullets and claws. Without any shame, the widow acknowledges that this sin is her doing, hiding neither the pride in her work nor her motives. The deceased should have acted faster to launch the product.
No one is gonna stop Eoline from hitting the shelves.
Having revealed her cards, she suddenly throws the gun to the opponent. Her reflexes work flawlessly. The gun ends up in Catwoman's hands, planting the last evidence. The real perpetrator takes advantage of her shock and sets off the alarm. Once again, her former subordinate is forced to flee. The police quickly arrive on the scene. Among the other law enforcers is Tom. The woman who occupies his thoughts is hiding in the corners of the spacious house. It is difficult to think of a disguise when you are already wearing a mask and blend in with the darkness. The problem is solved with the help of the owner's belongings. Dressed in a yellow tracksuit with stripes, Patience looks inconspicuous on the street. A news billboard reveals to her the bottom line of the night. Another crime is unfairly blamed on her. An interview about the pursuit of the main threat of the day is given by a painfully familiar detective. He also meets the girl at her apartment at dawn with an apology and a service weapon at the ready. Blue-red glares appear in the yard, and a familiar siren howls. Patience is arrested. She doesn't try to resist.
I guess you could take this right out of my hands if you wanted.
The conversation at the station is tense. The detainee's explanations are logical, but not as convincing to the officers as the evidence. The prisoner cannot hold back her tears. She asks to trust her and recounts the events that preceded the affair with her detective. But Tom is not ready to put it all on the line, not understanding who is in front of him. Memories of their love have not changed his decision to send the troublemaker to a cell. It's only after locking the woman up that Tom begins to go over the evidence again, looking for alternative clues. His partner sees his doubts and urges him to leave the case closed and stop torturing himself.
Look at it this way, Lone. May have lost your woman, but at least you got your man.
As night falls, the prisoner ponders the value of freedom, but eventually comes to believe in the importance of her duty. Encouraged by her newfound resolve, Catwoman slips between the bars with her usual grace and cuts her way to freedom through the windowsill. The somersault ends with the landing on all four paws in front of the braking car, and Patience resolutely rushes off towards her exploits. Laurel doesn't waste any time. The presentation turns into a cocktail party with the charming hostess at the head. Her portrait is once again on all walls. She greets the uninvited Tom like a hero, gives the guards a signal with her eyes, and goes upstairs to her office with him. The company warehouse is also in turmoil before the first shipments leave. In her trademark suit, Catwoman makes corrections to the logistician's work by leaving the entire team without transportation in one fell swoop. Face to face with the detective, Laurel continues to play her part, but under criticism, her fragile version of events seems too convenient. Then the policeman goes all in. He says he knows the truth about the death of her husband and the product and has all the evidence he needs. But instead of handcuffing her, he offers her a deal. The businesswoman responds to his bluff with one of her own and asks about the price. Tom is convinced that he has now actually solved the case. He reaches for his gun, but instead of a reward for his good work, receives a bullet from the culprit of all this trouble.
Because I finally trusted a friend.
Yeah, well, your friend just got you killed.
The former employee prevents her from finishing what she started, having disarmed and driven away the villainess with flicks of her whip. She picks up Tom and heads for the stairs. They get a brief respite of excitement and revelation, but the noise of incoming enemies brings the couple back to reality. After a brief and effective ambush, the duo finally disarms the mercenaries, clearing a path to the boss. The latter doesn't keep them waiting. The imminent clash begins with a confession from Patience. She is a victim and a former employee of the woman she is now going to stop. A direct confrontation shows the Catwoman's power, but all blows are stopped by the cream-soaked opponent. In turn, neither a crowbar nor a fire extinguisher help the woman in a fight against Catwoman's agility. And yet the round ends when the selfish woman symbolically flies into a glazed shield with her own portrait on it. But it's too early to celebrate. A shriek marks the second round of the battle. With renewed vigor, Laurel goes on the counteroffensive. Hanging over the precipice, Patience gathers her strength for a decisive push.
Game over. Guess what? It's overtime.
She alternates between jumping on the beams and swinging her whip, and this time the place above the abyss is taken by the treacherous businesswoman. She is distracted from the saving palm by a terrifying sight in the reflection. Her skin is disintegrating from exposure to butylene. These moments are enough for her to plummet and collapse right in the center of her empire's symbol. The sad scene is witnessed by the officer who just arrived. Catwoman manages to accomplish her mission without getting her paws dirty, and her companion promises to handle the legal intricacies. The remains of a former enemy crumble, and above them rises the embodiment of thriving youth. With sadness, Tom lets go of his feelings for someone who has no place in his world, and Catwoman goes off to walk on the rooftops towards new, unpredictable adventures. 43 purring actors were involved in the making of this film. Moreover, the main role was played by 3 furry talents at once. None of the animals cast has received any awards, but one little guy took the grand prize. Immediately after the filming, he went to live with Halle Berry. By the way, no sushi was hurt by her during the filming. They were all imitations made of fruit. She had better luck with the whip. A week and a half of training was enough for Halle to master the tool. As always, look for the name of the movie in the description of the video. In the meantime, let us know in the comments, who is your favorite female comic book character? And don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel so that more awesome stories come out as often as possible.